Happy Hanukkah, Zois Hanukkah, the culmination of Hanukkah, the 8th day, and Erev Shabbos, Parshas Mikeitz. Normally, the Haftorah for this week's Torah portion is read as part of that is the Haftorah for Hanukkah, certainly in very many years. This year, particularly, it's not. It's we revert back to the organic Haftorah, the Haftorah that's actually associated with this week's Torah portion, rather than the time frame that we find ourselves in. And it contains the famous story of King Solomon's justice when the two mothers, both having recently given birth, one of the children, Rahman al-Islam, having passed away, presented themselves in front of King Solomon, both claiming to be the mother of the surviving child. And King Solomon's exercise of wisdom in decreeing that let the baby be cut in half, and the one mother screams, fine, let's do that. And the other one says, no, chas v'shalom, and Shalom HaMelech points to the mother that refused to have the child hurt and says that's the real mother. Speaking of which, the story is told of a little Jewish village in Europe where there were two families whose daughters came of marriageable age, and parents wrote to the matchmaker in the big city asking for two fine yeshiva students to be sent to the village to marry the daughters. And when the train arrived that was supposed to be carrying the two sons-in-law to be, there was only one. And each mother claimed that this was going to be the one for her daughter. They argued, they squabbled. Finally, they came to the village rabbi. The rabbi listened to both mothers' arguments, said, let's do what King Solomon did. Let's cut the young man in half, and each one of you will take one piece. One mother said, no, Rahmana, I'm prepared to compromise. And the other one said, yes, cut him up. And the rabbi pointed at the second mother and said, that's the real mother-in-law. Anyway, seriously, why is this story of King Solomon's exercise of justice so intrinsically associated with Parshas Mikeitz? In the story of Yosef meeting his brothers, here he is, the prime minister of Egypt. He seems to be testing his brothers to see how much they actually cared for each other. First, he took Shimon away from the rest of the brothers, and they all went back to the land of Canaan without him. And then when they came back, they brought Binyamin. And he tried again. He tested them to see who would be prepared to give up his own life for his brother, to see, in effect, who was the real mother. Ultimately, it turned out to be Yehuda, who was ready to go as far as sacrificing his own life. It was Yehuda who took responsibility for Binyamin. As he had told his father Yaakov, I guarantee him, from my hand you may demand him. And this responsibility, this guarantee wasn't just for that generation, but for future generations as well. You know the story of David and Goliath. Little David going into battle against the great giant Goliath. Who was the Jewish king at the time? King Shaul, King Saul. So the Medrash tells us something amazing. It says, when did Yehuda repay his obligation? In the days of Goliath. Since the Jewish people were in trouble at that time, David was told, here is the time to fulfill the obligation of your ancestor who guaranteed Binyamin to his father. King Shaul was from the tribe of Binyamin. David was from the tribe of Yehuda. We took responsibility, said to Yehuda, to look after the tribe of Binyamin, and that's why we need to go rescue Shaul from the hands of the Philistines, and that's what David did. And the Medrash continues with a bit of a twist. God said to Binyamin, God said to David, to King David, by your life as surely as you gave your life for Shaul of the tribe of Binyamin, just like your ancestor Yehuda was prepared to do for his brother Binyamin, by your life, while all the other tribes will ultimately be exiled, the tribes of Yehuda and Binyamin will not be exiled with them. All 10 other tribes ultimately were exiled and lost, and we don't know where they are to this very day. Only 2 tribes, Binyamin and Yehuda. Plus, of course, the remnants of the tribe of Levi and the Kohanim. That's who comprise the Jewish people today and for the past 2,500 years. And it's the responsibility that Yehuda was willing to take for Binyamin that granted the merit for the preservation of these 2 tribes, for what's in effect all of the Jewish people left today. We're not known today as Hebrews. We're not known today as Israelites, were called Yehudim, Judahites. That's where the word Jew comes from. We're called Yehudim because Yehuda symbolizes taking responsibility for a brother and being ready to give up one's life for a fellow Jew. In other words, what does it mean to be a Jew? It means to be one who cares. We're always activists. Jews are always getting involved in something. You find Jews fighting for the disadvantaged and for the poor, first to get involved in any charitable cause, hospital, helping the needy, orphanages, anything. Interesting point that's made by Rabbi Stephen Medanik, quoting a Rabbi Nissen Alpert, as to how this episode of Mitzrayim actually kind of encapsulates the Jew in the diaspora. When we first met him, Yosef was the dreamer. When he was back at home in the land of Israel in his father's house, he was the dreamer. Here in Egypt, he's changed from being the bearer of dreams to the interpreter of dreams of others. He stopped dreaming himself. And that's us as Jews. We are the interpreters of the dreams of foreigners and enablers. We are intermediaries between God and the nations of the world. And this is an important role to realize, but nowhere near as special as our closeness to God when we have that opportunity and when we're able to dream our own dream. The diaspora Jew is the critical advisor of the government official. He is the court Jew, the minister of finance, maybe the secretary of state, maybe even the spouse of the vice president. But is not fated to be the pharaoh or the president himself. The interpreter, the one who helps the non-Jewish nation realize its dreams. Why? Because we're Yehudas, because we care. Because we're people who feel responsible for everyone and we care about everyone. And we do finally get back to our homeland and to our organic environment. Please God, what will happen? Shir Hamalas B'Shuv Hashem Es Shivatzian Ayinu Kecholmim. We will once again be dreamers, not just dream interpreters and government enablers. May our dreams of a perfected world, of our dear ones recovered and restored, of Mashiach's imminent arrival, be realized in our immediate and awakened future. Shabbat Shalom. Happy Hanukkah.